Hi everybody, hi every spirit, welcome very much to the stream. As we see here today we are going to talk about Mercury in Cancer. Thank you for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and let's get ready into the business. So what is Mercury and what is in Cancer? Mercury represents our ability to think, communicate and analyze in logical ways, in efficient ways, and in realistic ways. Cancer is cardinal water. Cardinal is the ability to initiate or to start something in something that was already there. So, refreshment, not just starting something out of nowhere, right? And it also means the ability to not create just new things, but also new perspectives. Like you might be still using the same thing, you might still be in the same space. And instead of creating a new space or changing that space that you were in, you just change your perspective or the perspective of somebody else about whatever. So it's a new thing or a new vision or a new idea, right? In this case, it's water. So cardinal water, Cancer means creating, being innovative, and sometimes a bit nervous because you're not sure, because you're creating always new things. But in general, creating new feelings and emotions, creating new reactions, creating new responses, and creating new ways to attract. But then it's ruled by Jupiter and by the moon. So that means it's also creating new places of comfort, creating new securities or new insecurities, creating new subconscious memories and membranes, and also creating new ways to internally and spiritually travel, obtain wisdom and knowledge, and create your own testimonies in a more individual, spiritual, and emotional way. And also, because of the moon ruling Cancer, it also means creating new moods, right? Creating new waves, emotionally speaking. So we have Mercury, which is the planet that represents our logic, our conversations, communication, but it's in a water sign. So it's not really good or in the perspective of Mercury, because for us it can be good. It's not what it is, it's how you use it. But in general, communication, thinking, and analyzing, it doesn't really benefit from emotion. Most times, keyword, most times, emotions and feelings perturb or slow down communication and analysis projects, right? Or analysis processes. But what do you communicate or where the communication comes from? It's from the feelings, from the emotions, from the internal realm. So if there is no water or there is no fire, we can create air or earth, the more logical materializations of our spiritual journeys. But in the end of the day, you can expect you to be a bit slowed down mentally, or the world around you to be a bit slowed down mentally, or even technological equipment, internet connection. It's normal that it gets a bit slowed down right now because Mercury is in Cancer. And what does that mean is that we are doing Mercury, or the spirits in this realm, including in your um, setup, including in machines and communications, we are perceiving and doing communication and exchanges of information in a more internal, insecure, moody, and spiritual way. So there is less action to communicate and exchange information on a logical and external state. But that's actually the ultimate goal, quote unquote, of Mercury in Cancer is to create a new way to logically and in a relatable way, in a way that others can understand, communicate your new feelings, your new emotions, your new spiritual purposes, your new spiritual travels. Because in the end of the day, we go through those travels and we create things for ourselves, of course, but then also to share and show to others so others can see them, use them as well, build on top of them, build around them. So if we can't actively and efficiently communicate our individuality, our feelings, our ideas, our projects, we become anxious and become insecure and antisocial or introverted. Some spirits in bodies, some people are already more introverted. So sorry about that. They either have a lot of water elements, some earth elements, or some like fire elements and planets in air houses, or Mercury or Venus in fire placements, or it's because of the way they were brought up, the way they were raised, they felt punished or smothered when they was about to share their own experiences. So they thought subconsciously they developed that pattern. That's how it's supposed to be. And with Mercury in Cancer, it's really great to consciously clean the waters. What does that mean? So any curse that you have on you, trauma, limits and boundaries, perceptions that you developed subconsciously about yourself and the world that you are in, can now consciously and logically being reset, being refreshed, but at the same time renewed. So if you are in a toxic situation, physically, presently, or emotionally, maybe dealing with something from the past, maybe mentally, you are in a toxic, you continuously project yourself into a toxic future, or you deny yourself a less toxic future. So you are in a mental toxic space. If you don't know how to use this alignment, right? Instead of changing it, instead of refreshing it and purifying it, quote unquote, you can just create new reasonings, new emotions and feelings to justify maintaining yourself in that state. You might change a little bit, you might bring some fresh water, but you might not be able to change the whole situation. You might just be able to change the feeling a little bit and the mood a little bit, just to turn it a bit more bearable, just to turn that situation a bit more acceptable to you or others around you. Right? So keep that in mind. Make sure that you are innovating and creating new ways to communicate about your feelings and emotions. And also make sure to do the other way around. Make sure to open new spaces in your mind, in your logical awarenesses, to care and process emotions and feelings, because the mind can be used to process emotions and feelings. It's not like for every emotion and feeling, it's not sometimes the most efficient, but it can help you make sense and bring reality and clarity to certain emotions and feelings. So make sure you leave a space of your mind, leave some room to think, communicate, and analyze about emotions and feelings, because a lot of people just dismiss them, or they just keep them in the back burner and they don't really address them. And everybody, every spirit that is on this realm in a developed vehicle, in a developed body, they have some type of subconscious trauma or just subconscious perspectives that they developed because the circumstances that they went through, but it's not efficient anymore to keep those constructions in the subconscious realm. Maybe those are outdated perspectives about the world and about themselves that they developed, and they are carrying that in a deep membrane, because that's how you create memories. Membranes, memories. Your spirit just keeps going around in a space or in a certain direction, and it leaves things behind. And then you can come back to it and you remember it. You create another membrane of things that you are leaving behind in top of on top of the membrane that you left in the first time that you were in that space. So memories are membranes of experiences, things that we create when we travel in a specific space. So some of those membranes might be perturbing other membranes. Some of those memories might be perturbing your current self. Maybe some of those old memories might taint how you perceive something that you just experienced, are experiencing, or will experience. So with Mercury in Cancer is a great way to logically and clearly identify and then change mentally and through communication and logical processes to change those membranes, to change some of those memories, feelings, emotions, dreams, illusions, imaginations, and nightmares, spiritual purposes. And also, actually, speaking of spiritual purpose, very, very important with Mercury in Cancer, once you learn how to do it, because it's not like Mercury in Gemini, which it's very natural, so we just do it. right? And that's another thing about astrology is like when we say Mercury doesn't like Cancer, it's not literal like that. It's just like it's not as natural. Mercury in Gemini is natural. We already do Mercury in Gemini. We don't need to learn. We don't need to do extra steps. We don't need to develop our skill. Mercury in Gemini is Mercury in Gemini. Is Gemini and Mercury are communicating and analyzing. And for an example, then you take Mercury to Leo, which is not a bad sign, it's a sextile, but it's not as natural. So you need to develop a smaller layer on top of that. And even though Cancer is a water sign, it's really close to Gemini. So Mercury, yes, it doesn't feel comfortable, but it's like it just stepped out of the house. So it's still coming out of a comfortable space, still coming out of a familiar space, and now it goes a bit deeper, it goes a bit more emotional. So with Mercury in Cancer, once you know how to do it, maybe you already have Mercury in Cancer, and if you are old enough or wise enough, you already learn how to do it. You know what I'm saying? So you can be the help, the example on how to think, communicate, and analyze about spirituality, about emotions and feelings, about moods, about new spiritual projects, new spiritual perspectives, new spiritual purpose. So once we learn how to do it, once we learn how to go into the water in a new logical way, then it becomes easier to think, communicate, and analyze those things in a more clear and logical way. And the key point here is communicate, because one problem about spirituality and spiritual communities is the communication. And I think, no, I don't think, I know that's my one of my main values is to bring a realistic and logical perspective to spirituality and to astrology. And one of the main reasons people are not and make fun or just don't care about spirituality and astrology, it's because of the bad reputation of astrology being la la landish, because of the people that are mostly attracted to astrology, they just kind of don't bring any, not any, but they bring not a lot of realism. They might have it in their minds, they might have it in their perspective, but when it comes to communicate and explain that to others, they fail to bridge their internal realm, they fail to bridge their own perspective and common sense and the program and the matrix, right? And bro, we need to do that. That's how the matrix came to be, and nothing wrong with the matrix, all right? We need a matrix, we need a pattern, we need a common place for everybody to come in and sell their stuff. AKA, that's a metaphor for you being in your own realm, going through your own experiences, creating things, and then you come together where everybody comes together and we create programs, structures, timelines, schedules, I mean, to share and receive our experiences and our creations in a logical and efficient ways. Otherwise, it will be chaos. Otherwise, that will be just the spiritual realm once again. And why do we created this world in the first place? To bring more clarity and the more in pace, balanced sharing and communication of our spirituality in general. So Mercury in Cancer, in a way, is kind of it represents kind of one of our spiritual goals. Every time Mercury is in water or fire, it's bringing that balance, it's bringing that communication to the spiritual and emotional realm, right? So my value, or one of my values, is to bring reality into spirituality, because we created common sense, what it means to be logic, what it means to make sense, what it means to be real. We created that as a spirit, so reality comes out of spirituality. Now, the way, like I was saying before, that people have been talking about astrology and spirituality just disconnects even themselves and the ones that are listening from reality. And that's totally not the point, right? That's totally not the point. Spirituality is about you understanding that you create your own reality and you help creating the reality in general, and then understand how, in a realistic way, because it's about reality, how can you apply your spiritual natures? How can you apply the knowledge of the changing seasons, of the change? in frequency and vibration, the changes in intensity, the changes in angle, all those subconscious things that are already happening. How can you become more aware in a way that does not damage your mind? And how can you, from that knowledge, build something realistic that makes sense, that can help you be more efficient, add more value and purpose into your life? Because one of the main downfalls of this society is people losing purpose, or people not being aware of their purpose. I know a lot of old people, quote unquote, that they're like in their 60s or 50s, that they spend their all of their life working, and like it's across classes, poor people, middle class people, rich people, right, where they spend a lot of time working, but they didn't have a purpose. So they reach those, not later, but later in comparison to my stage of life, of course, but they reach those states, um like drains, right? They were never able to take their own unique space and make something realistic about it. They just went into reality, and they spent too much time in reality, denying their purpose, denying their principles, denying their values. And spirituality is really about that, taking those two things together and bridging it. Because when we talk about spirituality, we are doing exactly that, because spirituality like already is, you are a spirit, a creator with no shape and form. Then you create shapes and forms that represent your spiritual travels, that represent your spiritual preferences, your spiritual natures. And we are here as well to become more aware in a logical way of how we spiritually do those things. Because as a spirit, you cannot look at yourself. You can, as a spirit, you can see yourself. So we create this logicality and logical realms to understand how we do things, how me as an individual and unique spirit, how I as a unique and individual creator, how do I create? How do that spirit create? Oh, I see that group of spirits. How do they do it? So spirituality, or the talk about spirituality, is already a work of God, quote unquote, because we are doing what we do to ourselves when we create things in a more reasonable and efficient way. Because I can do it through words, and you can listen to those words and create your own conclusions. I don't need to go and build something and achieve a goal and change the world. No, just by communicating, it's more efficient. And Mercury in Cancer is really that. Is really taking those spiritual purposes, those spiritual travels, those spiritual expansions, and put them on a platform where others can reach it, access it, and understand it without any like super committed or super hard work, because that's to do, not to talk or communicate. Then communication helps on those terms, right? Just to conclude that, yeah, it really hurts spirituality in general, people that are too surface level, and then they be like, oh, that person is an Aries, I can't deal with them. Or they be a bit lost into a religion, even like religion, it brings a very bad name to spirituality because they associate it with spirituality, and religion is not spirituality. Religion is dogma with spiritual practices, or so-called spiritual practices, which is different, right? Or like people get lost into trends, people get lost into um like a specific thing, and then they think it's spirituality. Like, not nothing wrong with yoga, for example, or any of those things, but when you think that that is spirituality, that's a problem. And then what we want as a spiritual community is to have real people that can do real stuff in the world, but with a better intention, with a better purpose, right? We don't want what we call spiritual bums, quote unquote. And that's nothing wrong with that. Everybody in their own travels, right? Even I have yet no real power in the world to go build stuff and create organizations and whatnot. But that's what we want, right? That's how we change the world. Is taking spiritual wisdom, spiritual knowledge, and then do something, build companies, get money, create. currency, create influence in the world. We don't want to go back to nature, right? We don't want to spend all of our days stretching and meditating and not achieving nothing. Like it's all about taking that spirituality, that creativity, that intention, and making it logic, making it real. Mercury in Cancer is all about that through communication and sharing your thoughts. But also, like I said earlier, expect some slowing down, expect some perturbances, because it's not easy to quickly and efficiently bring logic and make sense out of spiritual natures, right? If it was, everybody would be talking about spirituality. If it was science, would already understand what a lot of spiritual people understand from we creating reality, that we do that through frequency and vibration, and through frequency and vibration we can change reality very easily, that our intentions affect reality, our feelings, our thoughts affect reality, all those things, right? And a lot of things are being revealed now with quantum physics, for an example, about like you doing an internal work, you doing an internal spell, and then that becoming reality. But that's also something that is being discovered by spiritual people as well, because it is also a very mis understood way about spells and whatnot, and like what is a witch, or what is a warlock, and that's really confusing because back in the day it used to work very differently, and we have these modern day witches and wizards that they learn their wisdom and knowledge from books that were from back in the day, and things were really different back in the day. Things were way less logical. That it was way less about society and the building stuff. It was way more about your desires, your emotions and feelings. It still is right now, but the focus is more like worldwide. You know what I'm saying? The focus is more progress, efficiency, even entertainment. Right back in the day, there was not a connection, a world source of entertainment or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But just to conclude, because we've been yapping for a while. And this can happen as well. If you have a good logical way to go about spirituality, Mercury in Cancer can make you expand because Jupiter is in Cancer as well. So if you don't stop yourself, you're just going to be talking and thinking into a world where you can't make sense out of it because you just travel too far. And that's exactly what I said yesterday as well for the full moon in Sagittarius, because it's that Jupiter alignment with then the Sun in Gemini. If last thing you notice, just talking about something you did in the past, you're not talking about this spiritual concept or a theory or societal architecture or whatnot. So let us take a card for today's energies. We already did before starting the stream. And we got Pisces for this Mercury day, where we are receiving or being more Mercurian like. So we are focusing more in our thoughts, ideas, and logical ways to analyze. And then we still have full moon in Sagittarius, Sun in Gemini, and Mercury is in Cancer. So the tarot card for today is Pisces, the moon. But I really felt that this is was a bit lighter than usual. It's all about internal reflection, spiritual, emotional reflection through your thoughts, through your conversations, through your feelings, being able to see your spirit. Because like I said, your spirit can see itself. That's why we love being in company with others. That's why we love to share things. That's why we love to be together. Because by you, as a spirit that can see itself, when you see other spirits and you feel and know they are your esoteric neighbors, they vibe with you, by watching them, you can deduct, you can assume about your own spirit. And that's one of the most exciting things for yourself, because once a spirit becomes aware of itself but can see itself, it's like, so you know you exist, but you don't know you because you can't see you. So you need mirrors, you need examples. That's why spirits follow lights as well, because they need an example to basically learn about yourself. And I think that's a very interesting and powerful spiritual truth or spiritual awareness. Let's not say um, truth, right? Which is why we love to come together. And once you start growing as a spirit once, because I think every spirit, once in its, not once, but many times in its experience, a spirit needs to go into a more chaotic realm so it can have a lot of examples to learn about itself. And then once the spirit goes through those realms, like ours is, like even in sports or more corporate worlds, the passion, the togetherness, the humanitarian aspects are always the difference maker, are always what attracts more attention and more business. So that's the proof that we want to come to this world to be more aware of ourselves by sharing, by being together, by vibing with others. And that allows you to know yourself as a spirit. And then you grow and you grow and become more unique, more individual, because you are learning and knowing about yourself by using others as a mirror and as examples. And then you become so wise and you become so expanded that you don't need as many interactions. You don't need as many examples and togetherness to know about yourself because you already did that. So you become more selective with the spaces and spirits that you go in to share those spaces. And once you become big enough, you become lonely, but not on a negative way. You just like you need just a moon, like you for a planet. You just need a moon or two moons or like three spirits that are really close to you spiritually to keep learning about yourself. And then you have more space to do more stuff and you have more space to travel and to create your own creations without fighting for space. That's also for another video. So, our tarot card for today was Pisces, the moon. So it's all about reflection, but I felt a bit lighter because it's Mercury. So it's a more conscious, aware, logic, and light reflection, deep reflection though, spiritually and emotionally. You might get lost into those reflections if somebody talks good, if somebody looks good, if somebody talks about something that you are interested in and you see yourself reflected. You might get lost into their ideas. You might get lost into their conversations. You might get lost into their storylines, or somebody might get lost into you because they see themselves mirrored in you. And what's the best way to go about this energy? Is the deep blue dragon. So this means to make the most profit out of this logical reflection of your internal realm is to be more fixed, consistent, and even stubborn within your deep emotions and deep feelings. Use the mind, use Mercury, use conversations, use analysis to go deep within yourself. But be aware because we're always going deep within ourselves, but we're not aware of it, right? Sometimes you're feeling a certain way. Sometimes you feel stuck in a space, or if you feel stuck in a feeling because that's your spirit or your other less logical awarenesses going to those spaces. But with Mercury in Cancer, not as deep as Scorpio, not as expansive as Pisces, but it's the start. It's creating new logical awarenesses about your emotions. So it's like creating a new submarine to go explore the depths of the ocean. Actually, it's a great allegory. Mercury in water is a submarine going underwater into the ocean to explore and know about the currents and animals and sea creatures. And the deeper you go, the darker it gets, the colder it gets, and the more pressure it gets. So once you go deep enough, the submarine that you currently use the that you were currently using breaks. Now you need to create a new submarine that can go deeper or that can see better or that can communicate better with the boat on the surface. So right now, we are in that stage where we are creating a new type of submarine that allow us to go deeper, that allow us to go into different waters, that allow us perhaps to see better and take pictures and send them real quick to the main base about these new creatures. But the deep blue dragon in this metaphor represents what you should be looking for with your submarine. You should be looking for your own emotions and feelings and your own animalistic natures and internal representations and reflections about them. Now, to conclude here the stream, let's see how Mercury in Cancer is aligning the rest of the natal chart. So Mercury is now 5 degrees Cancer, so it's already in. It's not transiting anymore. It's already solidified its position in cardinal water. So Mercury in Cancer means that you are creating new emotional ways to go about our ideas, thoughts, and communications, or we are creating new logical ways to go about our emotions and feelings, to then communicate them and make sense about them. So then we have Mercury in Cancer, fatal attracting the Sun in Gemini. So we are still seeing, acting, and expressing in a more light, cold, and logical way about our new emotional and spiritual thoughts, ideas, and communications. Then we have Mercury in Gemini, sextiling Venus in Taurus. So, a gift to create new spiritual thoughts and communications that will help us attract or expand into relationships, commitment, pleasures, or connections that can bring us or to our environment fixed, consistent, or stubborn ways to obtain and maintain privacy, structure, profit, organization, and sophistication in a real structure and ways, and also in ways that make sense. Mercury in Cancer is fatal attracting Mars in Leo, so we are creating new thoughts and ideas that are a bit more internal and emotional about our comfort spaces, about our personal spaces, and then we can be bringing that new emotion, that new purpose through thoughts and communications into spaces where we or others are being consistent, fixed, or stubborn by expressing in a good light, in a light that wants validation, or just in their own light, passion, motivation, anger, frustration, or deep desires. Then Mercury in Cancer conjuncting Jupiter in Cancer. Mercury in Cancer conjuncting Jupiter in Cancer. The ability to expand your mind when it comes to spirituality, emotions, feelings, others' emotions, your ability to read the subconscious, your ability to read the room, your ability to not just talk, but like think and travel in a clear way about emotions, feelings, spirituality, dreams and illusions, what's behind somebody else's creativity, what's behind, I don't know, somebody else's depression or happiness, or how can they keep up doing something. So we can see clearly, not see, but we can make a bit more sense out of the spiritual purpose of us and others. Because Jupiter always cares that mutable element because it rules Pisces and Sagittarius, you know. And also, Jupiter conjuncting Mercury, it means that we can create new logical awarenesses of how we and the world are expanding, traveling, and obtaining wisdom and knowledge in new, emotional, moody, comfortable, or passive aggressive ways. Because Cancer is really passive aggressive because it's ruled by the moon, so comfy, but then it's cardinal. So it might become aggressive because you're unsure, you don't know what's going on. That's in very generalistic ways, but it's still true. Then um, Mercury in Cancer is squaring Saturn in Aries. So we are learning how to create new thoughts and ideas that are more emotional, more internal, more calm, and more soothing about new passions, new frustrations, new aggressiveness, new intent and intention reality structures, limits, boundaries, networking, and associations. And we also are learning how to force, how to bring suddenly new limits and boundaries, new structures, and associations that are real, that are powerful and intense to our new conversations, thoughts, and ideas that are from our comfort, from our heart, or from familiar spiritual and emotional places. Then we have Moon in Cancer, in conjunct, not Moon, sorry, Mercury in Cancer, in conjuncting the full moon in Sagittarius. So we are misunderstanding the full moon when it comes to thinking, communicating, and analyzing, because we are creating new, more internal, more sensitive, private, and emotional thoughts and ideas or ways to think, communicate, and analyze. But we are overreacting and over responding to more expansive, more external, more passionate, more active, and hotter feelings and emotions. So we might be misunderstanding how we or others are communicating or even thinking in new emotional and spiritual ways about the full moon and the connection of expressions, feelings, imaginations, and spiritual belief systems. Then we also have Mercury in Cancer, sextiling Uranus in Taurus, the opportunity to create new thoughts, ideas, or conversations from a familiar and spiritual place about new, fresh, and rebelliousness and opposite ways to have structure, stability, and profit in your life. And then we also have Mercury in Cancer squaring Neptune in Pisces, learning how to create new ideas and new thoughts that are emotional and spiritual about new big awarenesses, big worldwide subconscious passion and frustrations, or just learning how to deal with things that you are seeing right now more clearly, because we have a deeper mindset, we have a more spiritual mindset. So now we can be aware of things that were in the depths, but now are being brought up into the world. Actually, Neptune in Aries just made me just reminded myself of the civil war, quote unquote, that is happening on the United States, for an example, because they are like basically expressing and living through right now something that is new externally, but it was already going on a larger scale on a subconscious level. And with Mercury in Cancer, we can create new mindsets and new communications and new thoughts that are allowing us to see the purpose, the emotion, and the feeling behind those things. And last but not least, Mercury in Cancer in conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius. So, misunderstanding our thoughts, ideas, communications, and ways to analyze about the new world. And the new world is a place where there will be more communities, smaller, but also way more communities and way more unique, way more individual, and with their own unique way to think, communicate, analyze, and build in unique, fresh, efficient, and realistic ways. And why is that misunderstanding coming through? Because our minds are a bit more slow, a bit more internal, a bit more soft, and a bit more private, but the new world is worldwide, where we have to express ourselves. We have to show that we are capable. We have to show that we have all those mental shields and weapons ready. But our mind is not really in that way. Our mind doesn't want to be in war. Our mind doesn't want to be ready. We want to be smooth. We want to be deep. We want to be aware of deeper things, not about world like things. But in the midst of this misunderstanding, there is common ground, which is the care, the family, the togetherness, the group. Because Aquarius is also Mr. Worldwide, but it tries to make the world its family. That's why Aquarius sometimes are so weird, because they can be distant to their family, like real family, because they feel smothered, or they feel it's there is not enough space, or the connection not good enough. But then they're gonna try and make the world their home. their family, right? So Cancers and Aquarius really share the fact that they bring innovation, they bring freshness, excitement, and movement to their groups, to their family. But that Cancer does that on a personal level and on an emotional and more spiritual level, and Aquarius do that on a more broader, external, and logical level. That's everything for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Keep your mind sane, keep your mind active, think about spirituality, think about emotions and feelings, think about dreams, illusions, imaginations, manifestation, attraction, all those things. Go deep within yourself. But remember, right now it's to create new thoughts and ideas, new minds, new vehicles that can go underwater and that can expand what you currently think it's possible or what you currently think it's real. So it's not to go too far. Real talk, thank you, thank you. It's about you expanding what you think it's logical, what you think it's real, so you can have a bigger perspective and a bigger feeling of belonging to yourself and this world. Thank you for watching. I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. Believe in yourself and in all possibilities. And remember, the best way to be is to be your goddamn self. See you next time.